In the beginning, there was chaos. Suddenly, chaos began to separate, forming the high plane of heaven and the low plane of earth. In the high plane of heaven emerged the first 5 heavenly gods, and like reeds sprouting up from earth emerged 12 other gods, 2 born alone and 10 born in brother-sister pairs. The most important were the very last, Izanagi and Izanami. Izanagi and Izanami were commanded to consolidate the drifting land that floated like oil above the water. The august center of heaven gifted them with a magnificent jeweled sphere to rule the land that they were commanded to create. They graciously received the gift and proceeded to the floating bridge of heaven. From the floating bridge, together they pushed down the jeweled sphere into the water, and when they pulled it up, the drops that fell from the sphere became an island. Izanagi and Izanami descended from the bridge onto the newly made island. Later on the island, after noticing the differences in their bodies, they constructed a heavenly pillar where they would marry and consummate their marriage. From this union was born a small island and a deformed, bleached child. Izanagi and Izanami consulted the heavenly gods to determine why their children were deformed. They explained that it was because during their ceremony, Izanami, the female, had spoken first. They once again performed the ceremony, and this time, Izanagi spoke first. From this union, 14 islands and 35 deities were born, including the mountains, trees, rivers, wind, and fire. While giving birth to the fire god, Izanami's body was severely burned, and she later died from infection. Izanagi was so overcome by grief with the loss of his sister and wife that after she was buried, he killed the fire god. Not wanting to continue without Izanami, Izanagi descended to the underworld Yomi to try and bring her back. Yomi was very much like Earth, except dark and covered in shadows. He called out to Izanami in the shadows, and she answered the palace door. Happy to see Izanagi, but Izanami knew that she could not leave, for she had already eaten the food from Yomi. She told Izanagi to wait for her, that she would ask if she could return anyways, and disappeared back into the palace. Izanagi grew weary of waiting, so he removed a comb from his hair and lit it on fire. With his newly made torch, he entered inside the palace and found Izanami, her body rotten and covered in maggots, with 8 thunder gods hanging from her flesh. Frightened by the sight of her, Izanagi then began to run away. Izanami, very angry that Izanagi had seen her in her condition, sent the hags of Yomi to chase after him. Izanagi threw his headdress at them, turning it into grapes that the hags quickly ate. He then removed a comb that turned into bamboo that the hags could not pull up. Izanami then sent the 8 thunder gods and warriors of Yomi after Izanagi. He tried to fight them off with his sword while he ran, and when he reached the base of the even path, he picked 3 peaches that were growing and threw them at the warriors and defeated them. Izanami then began to pursue Izanagi herself. Before he could seal the entrance, Izanagi and Izanami faced each other one last time. Izanami, very angry at being shamed and defeated, declared that she would cause 1,000 deaths every day. Izanagi then responded that in return, he would ensure 1,500 were born every day to replace them. He then placed the large boulder sealing the entrance to separate Yomi and the land of the living, and Izanami then became the great deity of the underworld. Covered in filth from the underworld, Izanagi went to the river to cleanse and purify himself. From his purification, 26 deities were born, but only the last 3 came from his body. So pleased with the last 3 children, he declared them rulers of the world. His daughter, Amaterasu, born from Izanagi's left eye, was declared ruler of the sun and the heavens. Tsukiyomi, born from Izanagi's right eye, was declared ruler of the moon and night. And Susanoo, born from Izanagi's nose, was declared ruler of the ocean. The most celebrated of the 3, Amaterasu, because of her power and many children born to her, is said to have established the imperial family of Japan. She sent her grandson, Ninigi no Mikoto, to live on Earth, working as the beautiful Princess Brilliant Blossoms. Princess Brilliant Blossoms was the youngest of two sisters, so the father offered the older sister, Princess Long as the Rocks, as well. However, Ninigi no Mikoto refused and only married Princess Brilliant Blossoms. He later learned that Princess Long as the Rocks was destined to bear immortal children. Princess Brilliant Blossoms and Ninigi no Mikoto, the grandson of Amaterasu, had 3 mortal sons, and their grandson, Jimo Chinu, became the first historical emperor of Japan.